All right, getting in breaking inputs. In fact, a big reaction coming in from the US President Donald Trump, who's remarked that he has lost India and Russia to the deepest, darkest China. May they have a long and prosperous future together. One need not deep dive into what he means by that, because the recent powerful imagery coming out of China, whether it was the SEO summit or that message being sent out to the US president by the Russian president Vladimir Putin, was enough, is an enough indication of why the US president Donald Trump has made that remark. This is also at a time when, remember, the EU has reached out to the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Just yesterday, they've had a conversation, Prime Minister Modi and the EU President, with regards to ending the war in Ukraine. EU has urged Prime Minister Modi to use its good offices with Vladimir Putin to end that war. And so clearly goes on to show that the US President is under tremendous pressure. Also to do with tariffs. In fact, it's after, for the first time, that the US president, while talking about mediating certain conflicts, has omitted the mention of India and Pakistan. Remember, that was a claim he had been making throughout, ever since Operation Sindoor commenced. And this is the first time he has abstained from making that remark. But in the latest big statement coming in is that the US president has gone on to say that we have lost India and Russia to the deepest, darkest China. And that also goes on to say that the West is clearly rattled, particularly the United States, with regards to the show of strength of the Troika that was on full display at the SEO summit in Tianjin, where we saw President Putin, Prime Minister Modi, accompanied by the Chinese President Xi Jinping. To add more perspective to this big breaking input, I'm joined in by Siddhant Mishra from the newsroom. Siddhant, take us through what you are learning with regards to what could have, in fact, propelled the US president to make such a remark.
Well, I think that this is Trump's way of handling the pressure which his administration has been facing, Akanksha, from last 1 week. In fact, the strategic think tankers from the Democratic side perhaps have been writing, speaking about how President Trump's tariff policy has made India pivot to China and Russia. And in fact, many are saying that it was a historic blunder which he has committed. In fact, many are saying that that he has undone the 25 years of hard work that has been put by the previous administrations in the United States, and perhaps to which he don't have any answer. And this is perhaps the reason that today he himself decided to accept a kind of wordplay when he writes that we have lost India and Russia to deepest, darkest China, and may they have a long and prosperous future together. Now, along with India, he has also mentioned Russia. Now, why Russia, Akanksha? The reason is that this could also be interpreted as a failure of the Trump administration to stop the war in Ukraine. Right after the Alaska summit, there were announcements made by him that there's going to be no trilateral happening, no commitment made by the Russian side. And as far as India is concerned, perhaps, as I said, that the strategic experts have been...
Siddhant, interestingly, it's also arriving a day after the EU President Ursula von der Leyen had a conversation with Prime Minister Modi. Remember, EU has vehemently urged Prime Minister to use his good offices with the Russian President to end the war. Is this also Trump's frustration of the shifting trust? Because remember, nothing, in fact, has been achieved out of the Alaska summit. And now you have EU making these overtures to the Indian Prime Minister. Is perhaps only egg in the face of Washington.
Well, look, as far as the EU is concerned, then there's no doubt that India has been, very proactively taking part in speaking to both Russia, Ukraine, Russia, and the European leaders. And this has been going on not only after Trump coming to power. This has been going on since the beginning of the conflict, Akanksha. But here, how I look at it, this particular post by President Trump, is that one, he's disappointed that Russian president is not coming to the table for the talks with President Zelensky. That's the reason that he has he has mentioned Russia. And with India, I think that because he does not want to look like somebody who has committed a strategic blunder.
Okay.
So, he is confessing himself that we have lost India to China. Prime Minister Modi going to China perhaps was the end of the relationship with India. Perhaps that is how he wants to project the future of India-US relationship. That because Prime Minister Modi went to Tianjin and there was this imagery, camaraderie between the three leaders, and after which US has lost India. That's kind of a narrative which Donald Trump wants to build. He does not want to be criticized for losing India. He wants India to be criticized for spoiling relationship with the United States. Indian Prime Minister to be criticized and to be blamed for it. So, he's shifting the blame.
All right.
Siddhant,
I'm so sorry to interrupt you there. In fact, I'm joined in by former diplomat Ambassador KP Fabian. Ambassador, thank you for joining in. What's your assessment of what's running on Donald Trump's mind? I'm sure we all wish that we knew, but the happenings, the geopolitical happenings of the week gone by have perhaps led to this, because there was a lot of talk about how the powerful imagery from Tianjin could have perhaps propelled the US president into feeling so isolated.
Well, I think, President Trump's pronouncements should be seen, what shall I say, holistically. Because what he says today may not be what he says tomorrow. And let us also understand that he is under tremendous strain. There is the Epstein file matter. There is the tariff matter before the Supreme Court. So, and he has a habit of giving out his opinion almost every minute. Now, I don't think it is correct to say that India and China are going to align themselves against the United States. No, that's not correct. India is following a policy of working with as many countries as possible, depending on the issue. And India is keen to work with the United States also. But then you see, President Trump has to respond properly instead of, just making statements against India or the Prime Minister of India. So let us see how long will it take, but I am hopeful that this cannot last forever.
How do you see it from the prism of Trumpian diplomacy, given that India has always made it amply clear that it believes in multipolar diplomacy and that for it to continue with its discussions, whether with Russia or China, one which is its neighbor, the other being a time-tested ally, is its own sort of tenet of multipolar diplomacy. And for the US president to be jumping the gun like this, how do you see this now shaping up the current dynamics in geopolitics?
Well, it's like this. In the case of India, President Trump has taken it very personally. In fact, I would say that it is not that relations between India and the United States are going down. What is happening is that President Trump is angry with Prime Minister Modi for certain reasons which I have explained on so many channels. And he is taking it out on Prime Minister Modi. Now, my hope, I could be wrong, my hope is that the two of them will meet when Prime Minister Modi goes for the UN General Assembly in this month. But I'm also told by some media people in Delhi that he's not going.
All right. So, Ambassador, where does this now leave discussions for the bilateral trade agreement? Remember, in fact, in an exclusive to CNN News 18, the Commerce Minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal, also has shared his hopes for arriving upon a first tranche of that bilateral trade agreement with the United States, perhaps by fall of this year, as had been decided earlier as well. But with Donald Trump saying that we've lost India and Russia to the deepest, darkest China, where does this leave us in terms of the ongoing negotiations?
At the moment, there is no negotiation going on. And I saw that the Commerce Minister was saying that something might happen in November. Well, it can happen if there were a meeting between at the summit level.
All right.
As of now, there is no sign.
All right.